Good afternoon.
Put the computers on mute.
But I put it on mute.
Say something?
All right, we'll try that again. Good afternoon. It's 4:31 on January 31st, 2024, and we will call the Personnel Commission meeting to order. Welcome everybody who's here in person and also those who are joining us on Zoom. Mr. Secretary, could you call the roll and establish our quorum, please? Here.
Sorry. Is it? Okay. Commissioner Goldstein
Present.
and Vice Chairperson Carter.
Present. Thank you. We have a quorum. I'm seeing, I don't know if it's on the chat or what, but someone is saying not hearing anything. Turn up volume. I think so. Bring it closer. You saw something there. Okay. Oh. All right. We had some questions about being able to do our meeting in a hybrid format this afternoon because the cameras were not working, but thanks to our media partners and our technology department, we were able to get everything working. So hopefully that'll continue to be the case. So now we have our public comment period, which is established at 15 minutes. One thing I did want to say at the outset was our meeting is scheduled to go from 4:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. And so let's remain cognizant of the time so that we can end the meeting in a timely fashion. So 15 minutes of public comment. Is there anyone, first let's start with anyone in the room. Is there anyone in the room who would like to make a public comment? If so, please come up to the podium and you can do so. I don't see any hands. How about on the participants who are on Zoom? And Sarah, if you would help me, if there's somebody that you see that I'm not seeing. I don't see any hands up for public comment. Going once, twice, gone for public comment. Okay, so we will go to the approval and adoption of the agenda. I will have one item to change, but commissioners, do you have any changes or Mr. Castillo, any changes to the agenda to suggest?
I believe Chairman Roeder, you wanted to hold on to 9B.
Correct. That's the item that I would like to move from consent and discuss it after we're done with our second conference item. Any other items?
I have no changes.
No others for me.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a motion to approve and adopt the agenda with the exception of item 9B, which
Motion,
will be discussed later?
a motion for holding 9B.
Second.
Moved and seconded, and I agree, passes unanimously. Okay, thank you. Now, we now have a closed session, which is.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
meeting minutes? I think we
Oh,
have
did I miss that?
item 5.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We do have the meeting minutes for December 13th, 2023. Any suggested changes to those meeting minutes?
I do have a question about the meeting minutes, because I think something might have gotten a little lost in translation and just might ask that we go back and double check, because as I read it, it doesn't make a lot of sense. It's the item under 8A. So this was a discussion about the pass point item. And it's sort of towards the end. It's where it sort of starts. Secretary Castillo said the floating score is a common practice. Ms. Schur said nearby districts use the score of 70. Commissioner Goldstein said the Personnel Commission should rely on the appeal process as outlined in the merit rules to resolve issues related to examination scores. Asking the commission to review these on a case-by-case basis will introduce delays and is philosophically wrong approach. And those seem contradictory. So I just wonder if we can revisit the audio and figure out.
I can't do it right in the meeting, but I can do that tomorrow and get back to you.
Okay, thank you, because they sort of seem to contradict, and I know it was an animated discussion.
Well, perhaps the best approach then is to defer approval of these December 13 meeting minutes until Sarah has an opportunity to review those couple of sentences, and we can approve the meeting minutes at the next meeting.
I'm fine.
Is that
with
right?
that, Yeah.
Okay, so we will do that. So now we will have our closed session concerning the performance evaluation for our executive director, which we have been deferring from meeting to meeting for quite some time. So it's high time we accomplish this. It's set for 45 minutes. 45 minutes is a maximum period of time. It may very well not take as long as that, but it might. So I guess we will adjourn to our private closed session, and maybe people can have their eye on the Zoom video in case we come back sooner. Okay. Okay, good afternoon again, and we are reconvening our Personnel Commission meeting of January 31st, 2024. It is 5:29, and the report from the closed session is that the commissioners conducted the performance evaluation of the executive director. And now we'll go ahead and go to reports. So our first report is the union's report. Someone from the union like to come forward? Mildred, thank you.
Hello? I'm loud, I'm sure it'll, I'll just talk real quick. It's not gonna be long.
Zoom with the people.
Hello?
Just talking to Mike. That way they hear you.
All right, so we have,
One thing, Mildred, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I noticed that Jocelyn is
oh, good.
on
There you
the
go.
Zoom. So it's up to you internally how you want to.
That's right. Thank you.
So is Jocelyn,
I am here, but I can speak at a different time.
No.
well, for general, so
Yeah.
for general union reports, this would be the appropriate time. On the other hand, if your report or comments are limited to one of the items on our agenda specifically, then you or anybody else would have an opportunity to speak at that time. If you have a more general union report, this would be the appropriate time for it. Up to you.
I think I'll forego that and let Mildred move.
Okay, do you want to go ahead, Mildred, give a very general report, or you don't have to?
I remember what you said, we want to get out of here before 7:30. So I would just say that in talking to the president earlier of BCCE, and we were talking about the concerns that we have with the process of the class and comp study. We had a brief meeting today, and I know that, and I'm sure Charlie's going to give you an update later during his report. But just from the BCCE standpoint, there are concerns that we have in the process and how fast the process is moving. So I will give you more information at a later time, because I just would think that it's fair we want to get some more information from other exec board members and then just talk to some other people. I do want to say briefly, and I was going to email to Charlie because he said that we we're going to have another update. There are still people that's in phase 2 that we've had the opportunity to meet and talk with that never received a response from the consultants. So after they gave their feedback saying, I agree or I disagree, even after, you're wonderful with all the support that Sarah has given us and so forth, they haven't received a response. So they just don't know, what to expect after that. So that would be good. And I think that's kind of like where we were going, where we were just talking about like just slowing it down some, because I just think it's kind of out of whack right now. Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mildred. Next, we have an opportunity for a district report, if there is one. Let me just see if there's someone from the district. Not sure I see anyone, although I think I've been told that there's a SBAC meeting that's going on at the same time as this meeting. So that may be where district officials are. Anyone from the district? Okay. Then we have commissioners' reports. Mr. Carter or Ms. Goldstein, either way.
I have nothing to report.
Okay. Heidi, anything?
No, nothing from me either.
Okay, I'm just gonna very briefly give an update on the merit rules project that we've been working on for quite some time, revisions to the merit rules. And we're entering a sort of second phase of this project. The first phase was myself working with the executive director, using the model rules to review our current rules, and then seeing if there were updates or improvements that could be made to the merit rules based on the model rules. And we had some special call meetings last year on that subject also. This next phase is basically me and Sarah with the input from our executive director, coming up with or creating a red line version of our current merit rules, incorporating the changes or the proposed, and all of this is entirely in draft format, but incorporating suggestions and items from the model rules, and then the ultimate product, either all at once or in portions, is to have more public meetings to go over revisions that might be being suggested using a red line version. We'll maintain our current structure, our current numbering system, and at least my philosophy on it is if it's not broken, let's not fix it. We've been using these merit rules for many, many years, since 1989, and some of the things work just fine. Some can be improved, some can be clarified. So that's my update. Thank you. Let's see. Mr. Executive Director.
Thank you, Chairman Roder. Today's report on the numbers for exams is for November and December. And that's because December we met so early, December 5th. We didn't really have all those numbers, so I'm going to read them for 2 months. So the exams report for November, we had 98 written exams, 42 oral exams, and 48 training and assessment exams, which gives us a total for the month of November of 188. And then for the hires for the month of November, we had 8 new hires, 3 promotions, and 1 new assignment. And that is basically a position that was added to the budget, and the person had a new assignment at a new site, but we consider it a hire. And for December, excuse me, for December, we had 32 written exams, 5 oral exams, 35 training assessment, and 13 performance exams. So even in December being a very short month, we had 85 exams. And the hire report for December, also positive. We had 2 promotions and 9 new hires. And you'll notice in the consent items, we have 9 lists for you to consider. The exam team has been very busy, and even in the shorter holiday months, they're still working very hard to make sure that we keep the district business moving. Monday, we had our professional development day retreat. We went over feedback on the exam sections of the merit rules. Given today's agenda item and the feedback we've been getting from the unions, we wanted to look at those, and we shared those with with Chairman Roder to go over some of the revisions and some of the feedback from the PC team. We also went over some of the exam procedures that are in place, some of the other, we got really in the weeds on how we can improve communication around exams and those kinds of things. And we were supposed to do DEI training, but we're going to have to defer that to our next PD day. DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. We had the module all set, but it's an hour and a half. And when we looked at it, we ran out of time. But we do plan to do that again and pick up where we left off at our next PD day. So those are kind of the areas that we were focusing on for PD. The Merit Rules Project, Chairman Roder went over that, and we just kicked this off, and we're kind of excited about this approach. We're going back to the old rules. I'm not going to cover what Chairman Roder already went over, but I think that it definitely allows Chairman Roder to hear some feedback from the team, and that'll be great. And then, so hopefully we have some special meetings in this coming year regarding potential revisions to the rules. I am going to try to schedule for March and April for the Commissioner's Brown Act training update, because we haven't had one in a long time, and Robert Rules. So those, I'll work with the 3 of you to schedule those. I was thinking of March and April. Each training module is about 45 minutes. So both important. And I'm going on my 3rd year here, and I know that we haven't done one since I've been here. So it might even be longer than that. I don't know. And then in terms of the class and comp project, I think that there were deliverables that were late this month. And obviously that didn't allow us today as a steering committee to really go over the job descriptions in great detail. We also had in our last meeting, which Commissioner Goldstein attended, we didn't have our BCCE leadership at that meeting. So I feel the need to schedule at least one, maybe two more steering committees, because I want to have the confidence that not only have the unions felt like they've participated and everyone's been heard, but before I bring anything to the PC, I want to make sure that we've really covered everything as much as possible. And we actually haven't seen phase 4, which is the compensation recommendations. So I know they're here tonight and I know they're going to speak to it, but I just wanted to give you the update from the steering committee perspective. And I think that's everything for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Castillo. I did notice on Zoom that Assistant Superintendent Samantha Tobias Espinoza has joined. And before we get off of reports, I just want to ask her if she has anything from the district's perspective to report.
No, I don't have really anything to update, but thank you very much for the opportunity. I do want to let the commissioners and BCCE as well as Charlie know that SBAC is aware that they have meetings that conflict with this meetings. And they're looking at what they can do to make it so that BCCE is not split between having to choose between being an SBAC and being here. So just wanted to provide that update.
Great, thank you, Assistant Superintendent. Okay, that's it on the reports. Now we are on item 9, which is the consent items, various eligibility lists. We have pulled item 9B, which is the high school custodial supervisor, for later discussion. So are there any questions, comments, concerns about the other items, other eligibility lists in item 9?
I just have one, which is the list for campus supervisors. Hang on, let's find that one. Right, school campus aides, forgive me. I noticed was open and promotional, and I had always understood this to be an entry level role. So I'm just wondering, why is it promotional?
Commissioner Goldstein, I don't have the answer to that at this time. I can look into it and before the end of the meeting, hopefully.
Okay. I don't know if it's just a typo that we need to correct, or, you know, if there's something else that sits below it. So thank you.
I
Appreciate that.
will look into it.
Okay. Otherwise, I'm glad to see robust lists with at least 3 ranks, and actually great intervals in terms of, you know, between the first exam and the second exam, you know, to get the list ready to roll. So the only other question I have is, interestingly enough, the IA2 list is the only one that had only 2 ranks. And I know we do that as an open recruitment, and I'm just wondering why we think we only had 2 ranks. Was it seasonal, or what do we think?
So the time, you know, November, December are just really, really low applicant pools. I mean, we started to see it turn around as soon as January started. It's just, we don't get a lot of applicants in that time period. And to answer your earlier question, it was a typo.
Okay.
Commissioner Carter, any questions about the eligibility lists? Okay. Well, is there a motion to approve items 9A and then C through I on the consent calendar?
A motion to approve?
Been moved?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, and I agree. So that consent items that I mentioned have been approved unanimously. Now we're moving on to our first consent item, which is, I'm sorry, first
Oh.
conference item.
Actually,
Yes.
before we do that, for 9B, did you want to discuss 9B or you just wanted to obey it?
I think, well, since we have 10B, which is the agenda item request by Mr. Hernandez for the high school custodial supervisor list, since that discussion may or may not affect our approval or disapproval of item 9B, I thought we would consider 9B after we've had a discussion about 10B.
Got it. All right, so we'll hold this until after 10B. Thank you.
You're welcome. So that takes us again to conference item 10A, which is a step advance request by A. Custer, pages 19 through 27. Mr. Castillo.
Thank you, Chairman Roder. Mr. Custer was, you may recall, before us, we did an advanced step for him when he was first hired, an advanced step of 3. And as you could tell from my write-up and my flyer, the spirit behind advanced steps or the request, when I ask of the commission to approve it, it's the initial step, it's recruitment, and in many ways, sometimes it's retention. We've already done that. Now, Mr. Custer's been promoted. And what I say in my flyer and my position as to why I'm denying it is on the basis that there is an MOU that covers the step increase, when they are promoted. So it's never to be any less than 5%, and it's the next available step unless it's 5 to 5. We can't go step 5 to step 5, but it's my understanding that in the promotion right now, Mr. Custer's been placed at step 2. So that does represent an increase in his salary. I'm denying it also because I do not believe that the language exists to supplement what's already in the agreement with the MOU, or it's not the appropriate ask of me to you. So on all those bases, I think that just to summarize, he's already done the ask. We've already done the advanced step when he was custodian 1. He has now been promoted. We're happy about that. He's been promoted and he's been placed at step 2 in accordance with the step placement that is in the MOU. And in addition to those, the request is also another advanced step using the initial placement recruitment retention language. And I don't feel that that's appropriate. So I'm recommending to deny Mr. Custer's request.
Thank you, Mr. Castillo. I don't see, well, actually, I don't know. Is either Mr. Custer present and would like to address the commission, or is there anyone who would like to speak on Mr. Custer's behalf? This would be the time to do that. Don't see anyone in the audience, and I am not seeing any hands raised on the Zoom. So let's see, we'll turn it over to the commissioners. If there are any questions of Mr. Castillo or comments, now's the time.
I do have a question. Given his experience, I see he had custodian experience for 10 years. If he had came in as a new hire, open position at this time, applying for this position, would this request be appropriate?
Yes, Vice Chair Carter, and we did do that when he was the custodian 1. He was new to the district. He requested a step 3. The step 3 was granted, and so we've already done that. And now his request is to do it again, but he's no longer a new person that's coming to us with the request. He's already an employee. And what I'm saying is for employees, we have the MOU that allows for that initial step increase when you're already a current employee. So this is just supplementing something that already exists. And that's why I don't feel it's appropriate.
Yes, Commissioner Goldstein.
A question I have, just so I understand it. When he was brought in December 22, at step 3, and then, if he had just stayed in the custodian 1 role, December 2023 would have been the 1-year anniversary, right? And he would have proceeded a step, right? He would have been at step 4.
Yes.
So the question is, when I compare step 4 of custodian 1 to step 2 of custodian 2, how do these level up in terms of difference in the rate?
I don't have I can do the math very quickly, but it can't be less than 5%. So it has to be more than 5%. So I would imagine step 2 is greater than the 5% that he would have had
If he had
if he had gone to,
step 4.
correct.
Got it.
Right.
Greater, the 5% greater from step 3 or from step 4?
Well, well, I didn't account for step 4, but it would have in the calculation now, it's calculated at whatever step he's in now. So it would have been 3. It would
Against
not have
step
been
3.
4. Yeah. But if he had not moved to a custodian 2, he would have had at his anniversary, the next step, which is 4, which is the 5%.
Right, I get
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And I think it would be helpful to actually know the spread
Okay.
between custodian step 4 and custodian 2, step 2, to understand, number 1, make sure the guy isn't losing ground, by doing this, and to understand if this is an either or he actually is getting more than 5%, taking the promo to go to custodian 2, step 2. Does that make sense?
It does. I have
Okay.
to look at the salary ranges
Okay.
very quickly.
Okay. Could I ask that we defer on considering this until we get a little more info? I wouldn't know how to vote on this until I understand that.
Yes, that makes perfect sense to me. So I think we probably need a motion to defer. I'm not sure if we can,
I have the.
Perhaps
information
we're-
Oh, do you? Okay,
Already.
okay, great.
Because
All right.
while I'm talking to you, that's how good my stamp is.
Okay,
So this is custodian 2.
I'm gonna need a calculator. I can see that. Okay, all right, so. Okay, so he hired in at custodian 1, step 3, which is an hourly of 27.28. Somebody else have a calculator here? If he had gone to step 4, just after being a year in the role, he would have gone to 28.65, which presumably is 5% over, the step 3. Okay, and that's if he had stayed in custodian 1 and just, accepted the next step, due to his tenure in the role.
and Heidi, what is his anniversary date?
It said, I'm kind of going from what I see in here, that we hired him in December 22 as custodian 1, and that he took the promo in December 2023. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, I'm sorry. In talking to you, I didn't realize Malika had raised her hand. Malika, can you shed some light on this for Commissioner Goldstein?
Oh, yeah. No, he's ahead at step 2.
Hello?
Yes,
Mhm.
go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Yes, so I was trying to raise my hand because I was the person who sent him his original promotional paperwork when you guys gave him his last step advance in 2022. So basically how it works is BCCE contract says that when they're at a certain step, the contract language for promotion says that they're to be placed at the step within the classification, the higher classification that's within 5% increase. So that took him from, sorry, give me one sec, because I'm pulling it right now. That took him from a step, I believe it was 3, to the new step for custodian 2 at a step 2. So it's within the contract language, but it doesn't conflict with him requesting increase. That's pretty much up to you all. But he was meeting the standards per the BCC contract language for him to be placed at the correct step at least 5% in advance from that custodian 1 step 3.
Malika, I have one question. When would he have gone from step 3 to step 4?
See, that's the thing, because it's a different position. Every classification range is 2.5% more, and every step is 5% more. So it doesn't really relate when we're discussing where he would be if he would have started at a custodian 2 and where he is now as a promotion. It would have been different because there's a number system. When you think about if he started as a custodian 2, he would have already been several ranges ahead. But the BCCE contract language says that when promoted, it's within 5%. And in the past,
What I'm actually asking is if he had stayed as a custodian 1,
if he would have stayed,
when would he be eligible for step?
got it. I get that. Okay, give me 2 seconds, and I can actually tell you that. It would have been July 1st.
Of this year or?
Of this year. It would have been July 1st of this year, but now he has to wait
Right.
until July 1st of next year to go to his next step because he's been promoted.
Right. Okay, thank you. Frank, do you want to go ahead and address this issue?
Malika just answered it.
Oh,
So now I want to advocate that because his promotion, he's going to lose out. He has to wait a whole nother year and a half till he gets his next step. So that, because he's taking his promotion, he's not going to get his advance in July of this year. Now he has to wait all the way around till 2025. So he has, it's a good argument to give him that extra step now. Because now he's forced to wait a year and a half. Does that make sense? Did I say that correctly?
yeah,
He
thank
would
you.
have got another step in July 1st of this year, if he was at custodian 1. But because he took the promotion, now he has to wait until 2025.
Well, do we know what the hourly rate, let's say, for step 4 as custodian 1 compared to step, what is he at now? Step 2 of custodian 2 is, how do those two?
I don't know. You have to look at the chart. I would guess it's probably going to be the next step. So it'd be step 3. That's just a guess without looking at the chart.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Right.
Well, I see that Commissioner Goldstein and Vice Chair Carter are busily crunching numbers.
We've done some math, and I think what we understand is if he stayed in the custodian 1 role and moved to step 4, in a year after being in the role, he would get a 5% increase. Okay? If he moves to the custodian 2 class and he's placed at step 2, he gets a 7.7% increase. So my question is, in the MOU, let's go back and understand what the language is in the MOU to see if, we're consistent with what the MOU says. And I'm just rereading here. Unit member receiving a promotion shall be moved to the appropriate range of his or her step. Placement shall provide for a minimum of 5% salary increase excluding the promotion from step 5 to 5. So what we don't know about the MOU is what are we comparing the new rate to? Are we comparing it to the fact that he was, should have been given credit for a year in the job at custodian 1, and we're comparing it to the step 4 hourly rate, which is, hang on, 28.65, which we would compare to step 2, which is 29.39. Can somebody do that math for me, please?
I think you're right. I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the step 3 actually might be right. In the custodian 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. To make sure he gets the 5%, because it seems like if the guy's been in the custodian 1 role for a year, we ought to be considering as his base the step 4, and he just got a promo to custodian 2. So I think actually step 3 is correct. Does
My
that make
only
sense?
hesitancy is, I think we've been told that he wouldn't actually be eligible for step 4 until July of this year. So that he's, at the time that he got the promotion, he wasn't actually in or eligible for step 4.
I'm confused. I thought July, is it July and January? Am I misremembering when
For the step,
for the, yeah.
Sam has had her hand up for quite a while. She
Okay.
might be able to answer this. Sam, did you want to speak to this?
So all anniversaries are July. Everybody steps on July 1. No matter when they all step on July 1. But what my concern with the decision is that we have to remember that we promote throughout the whole district all the time, and we don't do this. We base it on what their current step is when they take the promotion, not what they're going to get moved up to in 6 months. So I just have a concern that we will have a slew of people who want to argue their placement upon promotion now if we change how the district has been using this contract language as where they're at on the date that they actually promote, as opposed to a perceived date that they haven't reached. So that's what I wanted to say.
I understand
Thank you,
what you're
Samantha.
saying, and I think the error in my reasoning was that December was the promo date.
Right.
If the promo date is really the following July, this is somebody who, when he hired, just to double check, when he hired in December of 2022, he had not been in the role long enough in July 2023 to move a step, correct? Somebody?
That is accurate.
Malika wants to speak to this. Malika?
Oh, okay. I agree with 100% what Samantha just said, of course. But the only difference that I will say is that there for classified employees, there are 2 different dates for probe date endings. So from September 2nd through March 1st, their anniversary date is July 1st, and from March 1st to September 1st, their anniversary date is January 1st. So that's kind of where the difference is. If he had been in that position, his date could have been different, but because he started later at the promotional date, it preceded his date was 6 months past. So it's all about thinking about when he started and when he promoted. Those dates have different probationary dates. One is July 1st and one is January 1st. That's the only difference that I wanted to speak about.
So in this case, if this is someone who hired in December of 2022, his probationary period ended July 1st, but his promotional eligibility to move to the next step was what date?
January 1st.
January
But
1st.
if he would have continued in that assignment, he would have stepped up in July instead of January. That's the only difference. It's a 6 month difference.
Stepped up in July of 2023, 2024.
2024, yes.
Okay, okay. All right, then what I think I'm hearing is that executive director's recommendation at step 2 is appropriate. You know, based on all this, right? He hired in December of 2022. His next step movement would be July 2024, which we're not at yet. And you know, what Associate Superintendent Samantha said is, okay, you know, he took the promo in December, he's at step 3 in December. So what we look for is the 5% between his current step where he is right now is custodian 1 and where he would be in step 2 as custodian 2.
Just to clarify, if I may, I don't want to ever get in the way of anyone's raise. My recommendation to deny is more about precedent that we're setting. Because again, we have always used the advanced placement language, and we have used it for promotions before. However, the record indicates, because we looked back, the promotion, the folks that I brought before you for that advanced step were not given the advanced step before the commission previously. So what I'm trying to prevent is that we're now going to set a precedent for using the language that you get hired in the district, you ask for the language, PC gives you the step, now you promote, you get the step increase, and then you go back to the PC and get another step. I mean, I don't want to use the language as an additional mechanism in that regard, because I don't think that's the spirit of the rule. I think the spirit of the rule is definitely regarding initial placement, recruitment, retention. You know, that said, you know, the MOU is there for that, because I think the MOU is there to not have it be up to the PC or the district. It's automatically in there. And I think that I don't recommend that we stand in the way of that. So I'm trying to put it in other words, but
Well,
that's
I agree with Commissioner Goldstein on her analysis of this, and it strikes me that a fair reading of the contract language is that you measure the 5% from what the employee, the position and step that the employee had on the date of that employee's promotion. And not, you know, with all due respect to Mr. Hernandez, you know, and not what it would have been or could have been. That's just not our current rules. Mr. Carter, do you have any additional comments you'd like to make?
No, as I'd have to concur. We need to stay consistent on our rules and how we accept and request for steps. And I think our rule consistency says we need to measure from the day they got the promotion, from that day. So I'd have to agree with that.
Okay, it looks like we're all in agreement. Is there a motion?
I motion that.
Hold on,
we-
Sarah is
Oh.
raising her hand.
Oh.
I think if you don't mind, Jocelyn, I think we have to move ahead on this. Or else we'll never get through the agenda.
I'm okay with letting her speak before we vote.
Okay,
If it's-
Vice Chair Carter would like to hear from you. So in deference to Mr. Carter, Jocelyn, you want to go ahead and make your comment?
Yes, I wanted to know, has this ever happened before? Under you, Director Castile, have you ever made an advanced step have you ever gone against this before? Like, have you ever given an advanced step for someone before, after their probationary period or after they were hired? Like, we're saying oh, I'm sorry. I don't know what happened to my camera. We're saying that we don't want to do this and we want to be consistent, but have you ever done this before? Has it ever happened before?
No, not like this. Keeping in mind that, this employee has already made a request for an advanced step when he was a custodian one. So the short answer is no. No.
Okay, thank you. Now we're back to entertaining a motion. Is there one?
I'll move that we accept the secretary's recommendation to deny the request for placement at step 3 in the custodian 2 class.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded to agree with the executive director's recommendation, and I agree with that. So the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. The next item, so let's see, having a time check here, it's 6:12. We're trying to end our meeting at 7:30. We have a very important, I think, agenda item request coming up next. So let's just all try to be cognizant of the time so that we can get through this. So we have conference item 10B, agenda item request from Mr. Hernandez to review and modify the testing procedure for the high school custodial supervisor list. I think the way we're going to handle this at this time is we're going to start with Mr. Castillo and see if Mr. Castillo wishes to present this item and have any background information. Then we'll turn it over to BCCE and Mr. Lewis and anyone else who wants to comment. But I urge everyone to please be brief so that the commissioners can discuss this and hopefully reach a decision. Mr. Castillo.
Chairman Roder, I appreciate the time. However, I may just defer to the union, given the brevity of time that we have left. I think that the rules that I cited in my flyer are really the guiding document. And I think that I would want to reiterate that these are the rules that are governing everything we do. And I can definitely speak to it afterwards, but because the union has brought this item forward, unless, of course, Chairman, you insist that I present, I didn't want to take up more time than is necessary. However, I am available for questions or clarification should the need arise.
Okay, we appreciate that, Mr. Castillo, and I see that both Mildred and Frank are at the podium. So please go ahead and give us your comments.
Thank you. I'll try to. At first, I had something that I wrote out, but I see how you're trying to make sure that we get this done. And I'm just going to get right, to the point, because we have been bringing up having a set score for a while now, and bringing up the concerns that BCCE has with knowing what is considered the passing score, right? Knowing before you take a test, what is the set score? And we're finding, especially in this last situation, where we're thinking the set score is set at 70. And then we find out later that the score was raised, and it was raised based off of it being too many people. But we are asking, like, what is considered too many people? To where we will raise the bar, and in raising that bar, it cuts out a promotional person. So in the last meeting, commissioners, we talked about the information request that we had sent in because we just wanted some facts, right? And we've really been talking a lot and talking to, members, they're asking their opinion. And do you want to know what your set score is before you take a test? Do you want to know what the passing score is, after you take a test? What do you want? People want to know what is considered the passing score before they take an exam. It shouldn't be after you take a test and you may think, well, oldies like me, we always thought, we always knew it was 70, but You don't want to know that the score was raised after the fact. So, in the information request that I don't know if you all read, but you were attached to it, we asked some pretty clear questions and we wanted to know how many applicants, took the BHS custodial supervisor test. So it was 17 applicants, right? 17 applicants. I want you guys to kind of follow my numbers because I'm gonna try to throw them out real quickly and as fast as I can. It was 17 applicants. It was 14 that actually took their written exam. Okay? Out of that 14 that took their written exam, 8 went over to the oral test. 8 went over to the oral test, but 2 was a no-show. So therefore, the oral was only 6. The number between a passing score that we all know of being a passing score, which is 70 to 79, was 6. So if you take the 6 that were not invited to the second test, and then the 6 that actually took the second test, that's 12. You can interview 12 people in one day. From 9 in the morning till 4 p.m. We have done it for decades, especially when we were doing it in person. But it's even easier now on Zoom, right? You could do 12 people in one day. So if we don't know if 8 were invited to the second test and only 6 actually took the second test, we don't know how many from the 6 that scored between 70 and 79, how many would have actually taken the test or been a no-show. So what we're saying is that there was no reason to raise the score. It should have stayed at 70 and allowed everybody to go to the second test. Not only in doing that, it eliminated a promotional person. It doesn't make sense. And again, and I want to be clear, because I have to say this, I'm sorry, but I have to say it and be clear. I want everyone here to understand. This is not a personal thing or us pointing a finger at anyone. This is us wanting to have clarity on what is the proper procedures for the exam, right? We want to know. We don't know what their practices are. We don't know what the procedure is. And we want to know. So I don't want it to be, it's not a blame game. We all make mistakes. What is it that we can do to rectify this situation? Because we do have an opportunity at this time to do the right thing. And the right thing at this time that the union is asking, we would like to know, what is the set score? Am I correct? I'm sorry, I'm not. We would like, and we want the 6 people that scored between 70 and 79 to be able to take the second test and then combine the list. We don't know who the supervisors, we talk about promotions all the time, right? But we really don't know who the supervisors choose because we are not the ones that's actually picking the person. We're just creating the eligibility list. And we don't never want to hinder retention of our employees. We don't want to hinder promotions. We don't want to hinder just, clarity or people knowing the process. Right. So I know that Rhoda don't want this to be a long thing, so I'm gonna cut it off a little bit right there. But you guys can ask me some questions or we can talk about it, but I want you to know that we really believe that a passing score should be set. And again, I'm asking that those 6 people who should not have been not able to go to the second test, it's not hurting anyone. It really isn't. And I want to say this because I want you to understand something too. We would have had 3 promotional people had we just not raised the score and we just left it where it should have been. And in having 3 promotional people, it wouldn't have been an outside person possibly coming in. The way it is now, we got 2 promotional people on the list, and then the remainder are open. So if we would have those 3 promotional on the list, then somebody was definitely, they had to pick from the top 3.
I don't really mean to cut you off.
It's okay, I'm done.
But I think we do. I think we understand.
Okay, go ahead. I'm done.
You've been very eloquent all along in this process,
Thank you.
not just here, but in previous meetings last year, both you and Frank and the union members. I think we do understand
Thank you.
the issues
Thank
that
you.
are involved.
Okay.
So I don't see any other hands. Maybe this is a good time to have a discussion about it with the commissioners, Mr. Carter, Ms. Goldstein. Comments. I have some comments to make, but I'll defer to you first.
Before we move on, does Frank have anything to add? Okay, all right.
I'm gonna, no comments right now.
All right, so this situation is, has a lot of different facets to it. And so to tackle, I think we should tackle one at a time. And the way it's unfolding for me is, first things first is, how do we, first we as a commission need to decide whether or not we need to take action on this list. So it's here for discussion. So before the other facets come up, we need to decide as a commission, does this list require action? Whether it's prior procedural mishaps, whether it's testing procedures or communication, does this list require further discussion from the commission? And I think it does. As far as taking action, possibly making a change or an adjustment to how it unfolded. Because we can't move to the next question unless we as a commission decide we want to take action on this list.
Well, if I-
You mean an action aside from considering the list and approving it?
Right.
Well, I've been giving this a lot of thought, and not just for this list, but in general. And what I've been thinking is that, to me, there are two, I don't know about equally, but two very important goals or guideposts that I use to look at this. So one is issues of efficiency, economy, management, that Mr. Castillo and others have talked to us about. Namely, that there are points where there are just too many applicants for a particular position. Doesn't happen very often, but there are times when there are more applicants who would have passed. Let's say if a set point was 70, would have passed, than is reasonably feasible and manageable to conduct the oral interviews. There are time constraints, there are constraints of people involved, and I take that seriously. How that is determined is still important, and I think from a standpoint of transparency, it's also important that we have guidelines and about how that decision is made. When is it? It may not be quantifiable, but at least some standards by which the executive director and staff can operate to determine what the pass point needs to be. So that's on the one hand. On the other hand, very legitimate concerns and goals of promoting internal applicants for lots of reasons, for reasons of retention, for reasons of morale, for reasons of fairness. And as I read the education code, and as I read our own merit rules, What I see is that promotion from within is a very strong component of both the education code and of our rules. We favor promotion from within. We provide preferences for promotion from within. And that's an equally, at least, important goal. So the conclusion that I've actually reached, well, it's not a conclusion, it's just a thought that I'm throwing out as an idea, is that we do continue to permit, as we've done recently, to permit our executive director, with the input of his staff, to modify, to increase the cutoff from 70 to some other greater number, because it would be unmanageable to, if it were at 70, to interview orally so many people. My other proposal is that we limit that authority to open examinations and not promotional examinations. And that we not so much continue, but we have, for promotional candidates, we have a set cutoff, which could be 70, seems reasonable and historic. So we are favoring, there's no question about it. We're favoring promotional candidates under my idea, but that's consistent, I think, with our rules and with the structure of the education code. So I'll be quiet and think if anybody has any comments about that suggestion. Mr. Castillo.
All exams are promotional.
I don't understand.
That all the exams we do have the ability for folks that are within the system to promote.
They have the ability to promote, but not all exams have an equal number of promotional candidates who actually apply. Because under our rules and under the education code, all exams have to be promotional. But if there aren't enough promotional candidates who are qualified and apply and are ready, willing, and able to take that position and want that promotion, then we can open it up to outside candidates. And so many of our positions are open and promotional. And that's why, as Mildred mentioned, and as you have, our eligibility lists have promotional candidates and have open candidates. And we have to choose 3. We have to certify 3 to the hiring authority.
So just a couple things to note for the commission to consider. There was no appeal that was done in a timely manner. And again, I'm going back to the rules. In order for myself and my team to be compliant with the rules, we've added additional safeguards, one of them being blind screening. The other thing that needs to be mentioned is if I think you can not approve this list and we do another exam, but I don't see how involvement in a cut score is A, consistent with the rules, and B, setting precedent. If we're going to be fair, then we're going to have to go back to all the other exams that were promotional, set a 70 pass, set a score, and then we'll have to see what that means for the district, because that would be fair. So I think we have to really, in the strongest terms, you have to really consider, that's why all the rules are in there, and that's why I shared them on the flyer, because at the end of the day, what you decide is setting precedent. And there's no precedent for this because there was no appeal for this. There was no process, and the commission is voting for something that wasn't technically in the rules for a vote because there was no appeal.
Well, let me make a comment, Mr. Castillo. And I mentioned this at the last meeting, and that is, I don't view this as an appeal. I view this as the union's, and it's not the first time the union has made this request of us, but it's a continuation of the union's request, demand that we reevaluate the testing process.
Mhm.
And this particular test happened to be a vehicle for that discussion, and that's fine. But I don't see that we are in any way violating our rules having to do with appeals. The second thing I would say is, as to your comment about setting precedent, I agree. If this were adopted, it would set a precedent, but precedents are often set prospectively.
Mm.
They're not, there's no requirement that we have to go back and look at years worth of promotional examinations because we are reevaluating our not so much our rules, but our procedures going forward. So respectfully.
Yeah, no, it's
I-
okay.
I don't-
I just have
feel
to,
the same.
I just have to discuss it. The
Yeah.
other thing that we know is, I asked my staff to go back and see what setting a 70 pass score would mean. It would not serve our classified employees, promotional people. It just wouldn't.
In this particular case?
No, just in general.
Generally.
I mean, we hypothetically set 70 pass scores all the way back. It does not help.
If you went
Promote.
retrospective.
That's correct.
Okay.
Can you elaborate how it doesn't?
Because when you set 70 pass scores, there were a lot of folks that weren't passing. Setting a score and not evaluating the pool that you have, which is the process that we've been using and the process that's used by everyone, does not serve. We would not have promoted as many people as we have.
Well, let me, just one comment, just to clarify my suggestion. It only applies to increasing the score, not decreasing it. I believe you should have and staff should have total discretion as far as reducing the set score if there are just not enough applicants for the position.
Mm.
Yes, Mr. Carter, I'm sorry.
So I think this is where me and the chair differ. I would like to see consistency across the board and let the chips fall where they may. I think people need to know exactly what they're walking into, and not have the test score arbitrarily change. And that's what it's going to look like from the person taking the test. You may have internal processes and checks and balances of why you moved it or when you moved it. But from the person taking the exam and who wants that position, it's an arbitrary change. So I think my question here is back to, does the commission want to address this list? And if so, we need to address this list. And moving forward, I think we need to discuss how we change the rules to mirror what our community wants and what the commission wants. So we have the ability to change the rules. I don't think this meeting is a place to change all rules because, again, the commissioners probably differ on slight nuances of that. I think the first thing we need to do is determine if we want to address this list, which I get the impression the majority of us want to address this list. And if that's the case, I'm going to ask our executive director, how do we address this list in the least offensive way to our rules as they are written today? So I think it's a reflection of, that's our job as a commission to make sure that we are reflecting our community and doing the best for our district. So how do we address this list? And then moving forward, we will address how we test and how we set the standards, how we make sure it's transparent for the for the unions, but how do we address this
Yeah.
list?
No, so let me answer that one of two ways. So there's no way for someone in my position to meet the goals of being fair and transparent by pre-selecting and knowing when someone is being promoted. And what I'm trying to say is there's no way for me to design an exam where I am looking at the candidates to see which of the candidates are internal candidates in order for me to decide a score. Let me finish though. The thing that's important to note is the system we have in place doesn't know who's applying, doesn't know who is promoted, doesn't know anything. What we do know is that everyone takes the same test, everyone is asked the same questions, everyone is basically, so what we have in place is by far not just the best practice for merit districts, but it is the most unbiased way to grade this. That said, how do we fix this one? I think I answered that earlier. I think that we should conduct a new exam. That's what I think we should do. I think setting pass points at the commission level doesn't work with the rules that we have. That said, for later date, we are changing our rules. So if the commission wants to change the rules to accommodate, be more in line with what the commission wants, then we should do that. Because Chairman Roeder is working on the rules right now. But again, I think the rules are really clear in that the commission hires someone in my position to present what is the most unbiased and fairest possible process to put the list forward. And that has happened without doubt. That said, if we want to fix this list because we want to have someone or more people promote, I think our promotion numbers are really good. But I leave it to you. This is not something I can answer for anyone. I will say I'm worried about precedent. I'm worried about the message it sends. I think that we and my team, we have demonstrated beyond any reasonable doubt that we've been promoting, increasing promotions and increasing new hires. So we're clearly doing something right. And I'm afraid that this might be a circumstance of doing 99 things correctly and having one decision that is not popular and then changing the other 99 situations. So I say that with caution. I'm the secretary to the commission. I serve the three of you. So whatever you decide, we'll do our best to comply. And if there's a rule conflict, although it does say in the rules, if two rules conflict, it would be my decision. But this is uncharted territory, Mr. Carter. So I don't know, where do we go from here?
Commissioner Goldstein, would you mind if Mildred went ahead, or do you want to go ahead?
Please.
I would actually like to speak
Yeah. I'm
and
gonna
ask
let the
a
commissioner
question
speak.
first, just to, keep it consistent and then go over. And I really only just have a couple of questions. Is there anything in our rules that identifies what the cut score is?
No.
Anybody? Okay.
No.
There's nothing. When we post a position, do we post what the cut score will be?
We put in the range that it'll be between 55 and 99. So no, I mean, there are, and again, I have to double check. The short answer is no.
Okay. Then what I'll say is, not too different, I think, from what I said last time. The rules that we have in place are the rules that we have in place. Okay, so apropos to this particular exam, I think it's a mistake to back off the rules. If we want to change the rules prospectively going forward, as part of our process, we should look at that. I don't see anything wrong with a floating point, and what I think I see in the rules is that we do set forth in the examinations, the fact that we have two exams and how they are relatively rated, 60%, if you pass the written, it's worth 60% of your overall, weight, and your oral is worth 40%, so, that seems to me what we specify. I think we're going against the rules by doing anything other than using the results that we got and approving the list that we have in front of us tonight.
You make one comment and then I'll go over to Mildred very quickly. I just want to read from what I think is the relevant rule, which is 40.200.2, which is titled Promotional Examinations. And the first sentence comes right out of the Ed Code, but then our rules elaborate a little bit on that. And what it says is, examinations shall, where practicable, be determined by the commission, as determined by the commission, be limited to promotional applicants. When no promotional field of competition exists, or when there is doubt of its adequacy, the personnel director of the commission may order an open examination or simultaneous open and promotional examinations. So when I read that, that supports strongly, in my opinion, the idea that promotional candidates are favored by our current rules over open candidates. Mildred, go ahead.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I want to say this quickly, but I understand that Secretary Castillo is the secretary, but he's also the executive director for classified employees. And what I would like to see is more support and understanding and an open mind. This is what we do. This is what the commission does. We do the exams, we look at the process, we look at their practices, we support classified employees when we can. And it's one thing that I was going to read, and what I have wrote that I just never read. I said the merit system is all about promoting within. That's my very first sentence. Comma, designed to ensure fair and open recruitment, competition, employment practices, free of political influence, free of personal feelings or other non-merit factors. This is what the Personnel Commission, and it bothers me that we have an opportunity because we're not going against our merit rules. The list hasn't even gone to the hiring manager. We have an opportunity right now to do the right thing. I'm not saying if there's no reason to do the exam over. If there is no reason, because all 14 people took the exam, all 14 people, no matter raising the score, they passed. 70 is a passing score. And asking for 6 people, and we don't know how many that will be, 6 people. Because I'm not trying to make it about one particular person, but it does include a promotional person between 70 and 79 to have the opportunity to get an oral interview and then combine the list. That's not going against our rules. And it bothers me that our commissioner, because we're telling you, Charlie, I'm sorry, but I am passionate about this because it makes no sense. You hear that we have an employee who's been with us for 40 years, who teaches the class. He passed. He has an opportunity. Why not just think back and open heart and say, you know what? It does make sense. I'm helping a promotional person, possibly, right? It's just, we don't know who's going to get picked. Again, it's not because we talk about the promotions in our numbers. We're not the one choosing those people. It's the hiring manager. But what we don't want to do is turn our back or eliminate an opportunity for a promotional person. You don't have to do anything over. It's not that hard. And I'm going to be clear. I've been in this district long enough to know that it has been done several times. It's been done before. So we're not setting precedents. We're not going against our merit rules because there have been times where mistakes was happening. We had to resend lists. It happens. And I'm not pointing the finger. I'm not blaming your department. I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying, you know what? I don't think we made a good decision this time by raising the score. It wasn't, because this is what happened. It was a cause and effect. And that's all I'm saying. It's not saying that, our department does this. And I'm gonna say this. It doesn't, this district that's been here since, I don't even know, 1886, 18, whatever it was. It didn't happen by the score being up and down, up and down. I got into this district when I was 13, when I started as a student worker. And then I became permanent when I was 19 or something like that. I'm 51. The score was 70. And we had a whole school district with the set score being 70. 50% oral, 50% written, they combined the score. So to say now that it's gonna hurt our members by not setting the score at 70, and I'm saying, you know, for the written exam, I don't see how that would hurt. I don't see that hurt. I understand decreasing it, but I think that you said yourself that you changed the score 8 times. Okay, so if you change the score 8 times in 96 exams that you said you have given, it's not, I mean, why is it hard to say, you know what, we didn't have to do it this time? That's all I'm saying, Charlie. You have the opportunity to really do something and support something that makes.
I think we
Because I'm
do.
really passionate about it, and it just bothers me when I see that.
I think we do understand the positions. I see there's someone who's had his hand up on Zoom for quite a while. I think we do need to relatively soon cut off the public part of this and allow the commissioners to decide how to move forward. I think we have to do that. So I'm gonna call on Yazid Kahil, who's had his hand up, and then
Yeah, hello, can you guys hear me?
yes, thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. So basically, I want to just say like 2 things. For example, there is an open position right now on the transportation department. One of the mechanics left, so we have an open position. And if you look that job application or the job position, it says that the assessment may consist of a written, oral, and performance examination. First examination 50%, second examination 50%. So for a person who applies for this job, in his mind or her mind, will think if he gets 50% on the written, will be a pass, and a 50 on the performance final will be a pass. Then I guess while the person is doing the exam, at the end they told the person, look, this examination score changed to 70%. And I think that's not fair for the person who maybe, you know, took the time to fill up an application, took the time off work sometimes to go to a job interview. So that's one of the things I want to address. The second one is I've been in Berkeley Unified since 2017. And at the same time, I worked for the College of Alameda as an adjunct over there. And always when there is an open position, it's a promotional position. It's open for 10 days for any inter-district who wants to apply for the job. 10 days. Then if nobody applied on those 10 days, then it's open for the public. That's just a remark I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kahil. And we have one more hand, and I'm sorry to be forceful here, but I think this will be the last hand before the commissioners make a decision on how to proceed. So Rod, you have your hand up if you want to go ahead, and please try to be brief and succinct.
Okay, hello, everybody. I just wanted to sort of echo what Yazid was saying. I mean, I've been here a long time, and I've taken a lot of tests. And normally we know the score before we take the test. And it just feels bad that it feels like we've had incident before where it was an outside candidate that couldn't pass the test and it was lowered for them. But now here's our members, co-workers that want to get promoted, and the test is being raised to prevent. So I'm echoing everybody else that it would be better. I've never really taken the test and not know what the minimum passing score is. And also I had a question. I'll keep hearing Mr. Castillo say that he would have to interview multiple candidates, but according to our contract, when it's 3 promotional, you don't have to interview a dozen people. So as the board, as the commissioner was saying, promoting from within, when it's 3 internal candidates that pass the test, then it must be hired from one of those 3. So you wouldn't have to interview 12. So I just want to get that taken off, that it would be this humongous task of interviewing a dozen candidates when you have 3 internal candidates, and they must be picked from that, and it's in our contract. And that's about all. I apologize for my son. He's making a lot of noise. We're trying to make dinner.
Quite all right.
I'm
Thank
gonna cut
you.
it short. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you very much for your input. We appreciate it. And now we're going to cut off the discussion from our various stakeholders and see how the commissioners would like to move forward on this.
Maybe I'll start. Is it all right if I
Yes,
start?
of course.
Because I
Yes,
sense I'm
please.
the dissenting voice here. When I look at the eligibility list, I just want to double check something. For better or for worse, we did this as an open and promotional recruitment, correct? You know, what I see here is correct and is what we did. So taking into consideration what everyone said, going forward, we should look at this and we should try to address a couple things that are open. One is there is a popular expectation that the cut score is 70%. I think Mr. Yazid misunderstood the weighting of the 2 exams when he talked about 50%. It's not written anywhere. And I'm not sure, you know, given that, at least in my tenure on the commission, actually, we have changed the cut score several times. So I'm not sure, why there is a belief that 70 is the cut score, because it sounds like on the postings, we actually provide a range. I understand that we want, or at least there's a very strong constituency that would like a cut score of 70, and it's something we should consider in the future. Right now, I think what we have in front of us is a recruitment that we did according to the rules that exist. And I don't think we should change it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Carter.
So just to pick up on the part where you left off is the test, the recruitment was done according to the rules, according to our past practice. What we did is we changed the score based on an arbitrary, and I'm speaking from the test taker's perspective, an arbitrary reason. I think that gives us plenty of room to address this one exam, because it still varied from our past practice where we had not changed the score and where the test takers knew it was 70%. So this one test in itself is an anomaly, 1 of 8. This one test is the problem, not changing it, not us going back, is us addressing this and making it available at 70% is not, I don't see it as violating our merit rules. I see it as keeping our merit rules consistent, because this is the one that was changed. And because we don't have transparency as to why it was changed, speaking from the test taker's perspective, then this is the one that is of an issue. And I think that gives us the latitude to address it in that manner. So I would like to address this test and moving forward, making the test taking score transparent.
Do you want to go ahead and make a motion to that effect that we can act upon?
Yeah, I make a motion to reset the score to past practices, which is 70%.
just a clarification, past practice, going back to Patty, because Patty is the one that started changing the scores. That's been in place since Patty DeWitt.
Let's say past practice to Patty. Sure.
That's what we're doing now.
That does not mean opening up every test that was taken prior to this one. So that's semantics, I suppose, because we're not gonna go back and look at it, but sure. If that's the direction, I have an inclination, it's probably not as many tests as we feel like it might be. It was only 8 last year. It's probably not a ton, so sure.
Well, do I understand your motion as being first of all, it only deals with this particular eligibility list, as I understand it. And your proposal is to reset the cut score to 70, whether it's a past practice or not. I mean, you know.
That's my motion, yes. On this one.
And then is the idea that anyone who achieved 70 or more, whether it be an open candidate or a promotional candidate, would be given the opportunity to have an oral interview.
That's correct.
That's your
My
proposal.
suggestion, yes.
Um,
I think.
And then is there a third part, if I heard, I'm just trying to restate, is there a third part which is, and then to continue this discussion about what the rules or procedures should be going forward outside of this particular eligibility list?
Yes, I think we need some transparency and clarity around the set test scores moving forward. That's going to be reflective of this suggestion of everything being at 70. But I think that's a discussion we all need to make if we're going to change the rules to make them more transparent
In the future. Okay, we have a motion under our rules, actually. Motions do not need to be seconded, but be that as it may, for discussion purposes, I'll second that motion. And Commissioner Goldstein, you have a comment?
I'll make the comment before I register my vote. The comment is, we also have a obligation to staff promptly. And I think that the implication of doing this means we will need to redo all the oral interviews. I have forgotten when this list first appeared. Have we been talking about this for 2 months or 3 months?
November 8th.
Since November 8th. So, I assume that the district.
Sorry, December 13th.
December 13th.
Yes, is when we first started talking about this.
Okay, so I assume the district has somebody in an interim capacity handling this role, and we're not doing anything to disable the district. But I also assume that in assembling.
There's no one in that role right now. I'm sorry. I just want to make sure you understand the truth. There's no one in that role right now. Actually, it was Rodney for the last 18 months.
Working
It
at
was
a
Mr.
class.
Lewis working
Out of
for
class,
18 months
right,
in that
okay,
position.
that's what I thought I
Yes.
remembered. So, I suppose in that respect, they can limp along for a little longer. If we redo the whole oral panel, one of the practices that I understand about the oral panel is we have the same panel interview all the candidates. So this means that we are going to ask the folks who are on this list currently to re-interview. And they may or may not be able to do that, and that may or may not present other problems to us, so I'm simply pointing that out. When we assemble the panel to interview, all the candidates who scored 70 or above, or, whatever we're doing with this score. So that may or may not open us up to some other problems. Also, I don't know the contract well enough to know if what Mr. Lewis said is true. But I'm also concerned, I guess we haven't published this list yet. right? So, okay, then I won't worry about the other concern. And I will vote no.
Okay, Mr. Carter, as I heard, Ms. Goldstein's, commentary about retesting, doing an oral interview of everyone, not just the 6 or whatever the number was, who scored above 70 but below 80. To me, that sounds like a proposed amendment to your motion, that, because your motion did not contain that. So I guess my question is, do you want to amend your motion to incorporate the performing a more oral interview for all of the applicants who scored above 70, or just for those 6?
Just for those 6, it's my understanding that the others have already gone through the oral exam. Is that correct?
Yes, Vice Chair Carter, the only thing, we don't have to re-interview them. We would just interview the ones that haven't been interviewed, but we definitely would have to secure the same raters. We can't have different raters. So it's just a matter at that point of securing those raters to make sure that the same raters interview the additional people.
So.
Well, that's another part.
Just those 6.
Just those 6. Okay, understood. As far as the same raters is concerned, it's my understanding that we try to always have the same raters, and that would be very important to try our best to get the same raters. But if there is a rater that's unavailable, that doesn't violate anything either. There's nothing in our rules specifically that states that, to my knowledge.
They do it for free. So it's free, and then do they have the time and to come back? And
Right.
so, yeah.
Okay, I guess we're ready to take a vote on your motion. I believe your motion A.
Erin said sorry. Erin Arenas says that she's raising her hand.
Is she?
If there's time.
Okay.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead, Erin.
I'm sorry, I just needed to. Yes, no, I just wanted to comment on the Raider situation. So we can re-interview, or not re-interview, we can interview the 6. But we do need to use the same raters because the rules say that the raters would need to be the same. So if those raters are available to interview the 6, and they may be, then we can interview those 6. However, if they are not available, then we would need to interview all of them again because we would be using different raters.
Okay, I actually don't know that we have to decide this right now because we don't know if those raters are available or not. I don't actually see anything in the rules offhand, but that's something we can determine. Okay, thank you, Erin, very much for your input. All right, so do we want to vote, or we will vote on Vice Chair Carter's motion, which, as I understand it, is it just applies to this eligibility list. It's to reset the cutoff at 70%. It's to provide an oral interview for those applicants who achieved that 70%. And then finally, that we will continue to have this discussion regarding the testing procedures on our agenda for more general discussion and how we want to go forward. Is that accurate, Mr. Carter?
Yes, that's accurate.
Yes.
May I ask one last question?
Yes.
And this is a technical question that we have varying levels of expertise on this board for it. A concern I have about not staying with our rules and reopening this is we will be subject to claims of disparate impact. And I have no idea, because I don't know, all the people who did make the list or didn't make the list, what those disparate impact claims could be. All right, but the last comment I'll make is it only takes one person who took the exam, and was already advised, hey, you made the cut. Your score was whatever, because we tell them the scores, right? And, we're, we are revisiting the process. So you still have passed. If we are lucky enough to get all of the same oral interviewers that we had the first time, there is no issue. We have just taken a long time to make the decision. If we can't get all of the oral interviewers together, I think the better practice for a lot of reasons is to require all the candidates who passed to re-interview again. And the reason we try to use the same oral interviewers is so that we calibrate same interviewers interviewing all the same people, have all the same instructions, and can, we can say it was all the same people looking at all the candidates. So the ratings are consistent, across those interviewers. If we are unable to get all those oral interviewers back, I worry that we are opening ourselves to a disparate impact claim, and it only takes one person. So I'm just going to throw that out as a caution before you vote.
Well, that sounds, again, like a proposed amendment to your motion, Mr. Carter. And I guess the amendment would be, we would try to just interview the 6 who achieved a 70% using the same raters. But if we cannot obtain the same raters, then we would basically re-interview everyone who achieved over 70. Are you amenable to that amendment to your motion?
I think that's a bridge we can cross when we get to it. The initial raters are still available. Theoretically, we don't know if they're not. So I don't, from an old saying, there's no need to borrow trouble. If it's not an issue yet, it's not an issue. If it becomes an issue, then it'll come back to the commission as an issue. But until then, it's not an issue. I don't see it as a concern yet.
Okay.
So are we saying then that if, our expectation is that for the oral interview, the 6 will be interviewed by the same raters used previously? And if they're not available, then this issue comes back to the commission?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And from the standpoint of the second, I approve of that relatively slight amendment. Okay, let's, I'll just say for my part that the primary reason that I'm supportive of this, I do not believe that the setting of the cut score above 70 was arbitrary. I mean, I definitely don't believe that it was. I understand, Vice Chair Carter, that you're really talking about from the perspective of the test taker, and I can understand that. But I do not for a second. I think there are good reasons to support having increased that cutoff score. Finally, the reason that I'm going to support your motion is because it still allows us going forward to discuss what the best procedure will be for establishing cut scores. And I'll leave it at that. So we'll take our vote. Commissioner Goldstein?
I'm going to continue to vote no. And in part, just to riff off a comment that you made, not only is it not arbitrary that the test score was changed, in our notice, we gave a range. And the difference between what you wish and what is exactly why we give notices. there is nothing arbitrary about making this change.
Thank you. Mr. Carter.
I'll vote to approve, and just a comment, the arbitrary portion of this is there's no set number to move it to the next level. Could be 75, could have been 78, maybe it could have been 95, depending on how many people took the test. And I understand there's some reasons behind it, but it's just, it's too ambiguous. And for that reason, I definitely support this and support my suggestion and vote yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Carter, and I'll vote yes as well. So the motion passes 2-1. Thank you. Let's see, where are we? So first off, our time check, it's 7:11, which means that we are not going to be able, at least in my opinion, to go through our entire agenda. The last of our conference items is just figuring out our personnel commission meeting rescheduling for our April and May meeting. And then we have a budget update, which wouldn't take long. And then 11B is a class and comp study phase 3 report that we received, which frankly, I haven't had a chance. We just got it. I haven't had a chance to go through in any detail. So I would propose that we defer item 11B until our next meeting, and we try to quickly take care of items 10C and 11A, and then have our final public comment period. Is that agreeable with?
I support that.
Yes,
Okay.
I agree.
And is that workable, Mr. Castillo?
I think so.
Yeah, okay. So we will, the consensus is we will defer item 11B to a future meeting. So Mr. Castillo, our meeting schedule, I think it's on page 31. Perhaps we could do 1 month at a time, starting with April. And I can say for myself that the only date I'm not available in April is April 22nd, but I'm available the other 2 dates.
I can do any of those dates.
April's pretty open for me. Fridays work better because Mondays can get crazy for me.
But if that's the date that's available, you're okay with it? Your preference is.
Right.
Your preference is Friday.
Purpose
Okay.
is Friday.
Well, Mr. Castillo, do you want to establish a date now, either the 26th or the 29th? Whichever you and staff would prefer, taking into consideration Mr. Carter's comment just.
Can we? I think the 26th is, I don't remember why, but there's some kind of, can we, sorry, Vice Chair Carter, but can we try the 22nd or the 29th?
I'm not available the 22nd.
Oh, sorry. Can we try the 29th?
Okay, I can make the 29th work.
Okay, so that for April, it'll be on April 29th. And for May, the only date I'm not available is May 20th, but I'm available the other 2 dates. Those are both Fridays.
Okay. Can we suggest the 31st? The Friday, the 31st?
I'm available.
I'm not available on the 31st, unfortunately.
24th then? It's right before Memorial Day.
Yeah. 24th or the 20th works for me.
I'm not available the 20th.
All right,
How about
so
the 24th?
24th works for me.
Okay, then let's, Mr. Castillo, that works. Go ahead and do it on the 24th.
So Chairman Roder, just to confirm, April will be the 29th
Yes,
and May will be the 24th.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, then moving on to the meeting schedule, item 11A. And I'll start with that, Mr. Castillo, if that's okay. We, at the last meeting, there were some issues having to do with our budget. You instructed me and Mr. Castillo to meet with the two assistant superintendents, Tobias Espinoza and the business office assistant superintendent Pauline Follensby. We did that. We did that on January 18th, 2024. And I can say that all of the outstanding issues that we discussed were resolved positively. So as far as the administrative assistant 3 position being funded by BERA, both Ms. Follensby and Ms. Tobias Espinoza agreed that all steps had been taken. As a matter of fact, it had recently gone to the oversight committee for BSEP and BERA, and they had no problem with it. Ms. Tobias Espinoza presented it. So as far as we know, that is funded and for the 23-24 budget year and hopefully beyond. So that's that. And then if you recall, there were, I think it was $20,000 approximately of miscellaneous items that had not been, that were in our budget, but had not been loaded onto Escape. And therefore, when we tried to make payments through Escape, they could not be made. Ms. Follensby assured us, frankly, I got the impression she was saying that was just an error, that in fact, it should have been loaded. As I understand it, it's now been loaded. Although, as I also understand it, there are some additional processes that our executive director and staff have to go through to actually get an invoice paid. It's not to say it won't be paid. In fact, I think it will be paid, but there are additional steps in the process. Does that, oh, let me make one last thing, which is very important. And that is Pauline Follensby was very adamant about the need to carefully review our budget for the upcoming school year, so the 24-25 school year, because substantial budget cuts, not cuts, but substantial, I want to use the right word, review will need to be made throughout our budget, throughout the budget, not the PC budget, but the entire school district budget, because of reductions in the COLA, the cost of living adjustment, based on the governor's January proposal. And I just have very quick. So our June, the business offices and the board's June projection was of a 3.94 COLA increase. Under the January governor's budget proposal, that's been reduced to 0.76, big reduction. That, the funding impact of that is $3.3 million. Now, one has to say, it's not a that's why I don't like using the word cut. It's not a $3.3 million cut in the budget. It's a 3.3 million reduction from what was projected. That's my report on that. And Mr. Castillo, feel free if you've got some additional comments to make.
No, I appreciated Chairman Roder's presence, and I think Chairman Roder is very good at clarifying that the commission approves the PC budget, not SBAC or anyone else. So you made that very clear, and I appreciated that. But it was very helpful.
Thank you. Comments, questions? Ms.
Yeah.
Goldstein?
Just one question. The 20K issue you characterized, or you said, that our CBO characterized as a mistake. Do we understand why that mistake was made?
As I understood it, it had to do with sort of the communication between the assistant superintendent and the budget analyst who actually does the inputting. And that she was under the impression that after there were certain glitches that got ironed out, that she was under the impression that it was going to be, quote, loaded by the budget analyst, and that didn't happen. And now she's instructed, as I understand it, that budget analyst to, in fact, do that loading with a little complexity.
And can I ask, is this complexity something that is different than, the process that applies to the rest of BUSD?
Well, I think that Mr. Castillo would be better suited to explain that. I'm not real clear on.
All right, and just to make sure I understand, because my memory is, I'm a little confused by the explanation, so I want to make sure I understand it right. This all arose because the CBO wrote to us and said, wrote to Secretary Castillo, the executive director, and said that he had inappropriately spent $20,000. That was what raised this issue to us. And I think what I'm hearing you explain is that the nature of the mistake was due to a miscommunication between our budget officer and the budget analyst, where the budget officer expected the budget analyst to have entered that 20K, but it wasn't entered.
Ultimately, that's right. As far as the back and forth on those emails, I'm not sure I would I've read those emails. I would not necessarily characterize them as the executive director inappropriately or improperly tried to spend the $20,000. That's not my reading of that email. And I think people can legitimately have different readings about emails. But frankly, my goal at this meeting, which I expressed, was not to rehash the past. In fact,
right,
Mr. Castillo will recall that I actually stopped Ms. Follansby when there was discussion about what happened 6 months ago, her impression. I didn't think that was going to be productive. So to me, what was productive is discussing what's happening now and what's going to happen going forward.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Sure.
So did you sense any ways that we could work, that our relationships would be smoother between us and their office?
The answer, yes, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that was it. That was a
I was going to say the answer is yes. I think, and I think that Mr. Castillo is working on this already, and that is basically more communication, and especially very timely communication, and the understanding that Pauline and the entire budget office, they're under a lot of strain and stress. They're not as understaffed as they were last year. They were understaffed very much last year, not so much this year. But nonetheless, there's a lot of misunderstanding, and there's a lot of room for misunderstanding. We provide documentation, but it doesn't necessarily always get reviewed and discussed and all of that. So I think going forward, and you can amplify on this, Mr. Castillo, going forward, I think Charlie's going to try to provide what it is, any changes we want to make to the budget as early as possible and have those discussions directly with Pauline or Emily, the deputy. It's not a deputy director, but the executive director of fiscal services. And so that it's real, and it probably is going to take more than one discussion. It's probably, it's going to take, see this line item, this is what it was, this is what we're proposing, that kind of thing, just because their attention, for better or for worse, is just not drawn to our budget until the last minute. Yes.
I'm just curious, in that discussion of, wanting to hear from us early and have direct discussions, which I think are both a great idea. The way we tried to do that last year didn't work.
Right.
So how should it be different?
I think that
This year.
Mr. Castillo, I think and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the current thinking is perhaps he would arrange meetings with either Pauline or Emily, whoever the appropriate person is, and Samantha. And if necessary, possibly one of us, it can't be two of us, but one of us, and I'd be happy to do that. And it probably wouldn't be more than 2 meetings at the most to just talk about any changes we want to adopt in the budget, in our budget. And so that would be the mechanism, is having some real dialogue.
I would then recommend to Secretary Castillo that he get something on the calendar tomorrow. Okay, because in all fairness, he made repeated efforts to try to get on, Pauline's calendar last year. And I think what I recall is meetings were canceled or just not acknowledged. So let's be the first one on her calendar. Okay.
Okay, thank you for that. So I think we're done with item 11A. We're deferring item 11B for a future meeting. And so now we have a last public comment period. There aren't too many members of the public in this room currently, but let's see, I think Samantha Tobias Espinoza would like to make a comment. So please go ahead.
I just wanted to reiterate the district's also committing to making sure that these conversations happen. And while I agree that we need to make sure that we are timely with these and all of that, that I want to make sure that the commissioners all know that myself and Pauline are also committed to making sure that we meet with Charlie and that we are actively involved in this process as much as possible as well, in terms of the budget. So I just wanted to make sure that that was shared with the commissioners.
Thank you very much for that, Samantha, and we appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
I don't see any other hands up. No, and nobody. Oh, okay. Can you come up to the podium, please? If you could just, state your name and.
My name is Stephen Theisel. I'm actually, 5 years with the company. I work for transportation. And I just wanted to say that this is the first meeting I've attended, but I want to say thank you for your guys' time and effort to help us.
Well,
Excuse me. Personally, I don't think you guys get enough kudos. You get a lot of accolades that you're not doing enough and things like that. I think we all need a pat on the back once in a while, and that's just what I want to say. Thank you.
We appreciate hearing
Yeah,
that very
definitely
much.
appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, on that pleasant note, I think we stand adjourned.
At 7:30.
Is it?